Welcome in to Union and an American Bistro in Castle Rock. Take it away, Chef Chris.
Hi, folks. Welcome back. We're going to do another episode here of. Today, we're going to start talking about squashes. Um, a lot of these items that you see, you walk through the grocery store, and I don't know. I know in years past, I've just kind of passed by them. I don't really think about it. We're getting close to Halloween, so everybody thinks pumpkins, and you carve them, you throw a candle in them, you light them up, and it's super fun. But there's so much more that you can do with all of these. Um, Today we're going to show you a couple of different ways to cook and uses for these squashes, gourds, items you can make anywhere from appetizers to entrees to soups. The sky is the limit as far as that goes. Today what we're going to show you is kind of how to prepare an acorn squash. My personal favorite is spaghetti squash, and a butternut squash. The dish that we're going to do with the butternut squash is one that we actually use here at the restaurant, but it is totally accessible for all the ingredients to get at the grocery store and for you to be able to do it at home. So with that said, I think let's show you a little more about what's going on. Okay, so now that we're back here, you can see we have kind of a ton of ingredients out here right now, and that's just because we're gonna start getting into preparing and showing you how to make 3 different dishes here. You can see here we have our acorn squash. I'm going to show you just a real simple kind of preparation. I like to use these squashes for soups. They have a little more body and they have just enough sweetness to them that I like to prepare them for soups. But that you can also use these for an appetizer or a side dish for we have Thanksgiving coming up, and other kind of special events like that too. We have our spaghetti squash that's right here in the middle. That's going to be kind of that. Like I said before, that's my favorite. So this is also you could prepare this as a main dish by itself, or this would go a fantastic side dish with a lot of your different poultries, fish, pork even. And then the one that we do at our restaurant here, this butternut squash, this is another one too. It's got just that perfect balance of kind of sweet and savory to it that you can make soups with this. I'm going to show you guys today how to slice this and roast it for just a really simple appetizer that you can start with. And then all of our other ingredients here, you're going to see some shaved Parmesan, some garlic. We're gonna cut some cherry tomatoes and bacon. Our red onions, there's some brown sugar and maple syrup, and we're going to kind of just get into kind of preparing all these things. What I like to do when I first start out is I like to take the items that are going to take the longest and start those first. That, in this case, is going to be preparing and roasting the squashes. So what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of get started here. I'm going to start with the acorn squash, and what I like to do with these is so you don't have something that's moving around on you all the time, I like to trim the ends off to give you a flat surface to work with. This will be more important when we get into the butternut squash here, but when you have it down on the cutting board and you've trimmed both edges that are flat, it just doesn't tend to move around you a lot. So then kind of from there, we're gonna treat all 3 of these squashes very similar, but we're gonna just cut him in half. And when we do that, you're going to go ahead and see there's just like a pumpkin or many other squashes, you're going to have seeds and a lot of stuff that are in the middle that we need to get out, just like you would before you start carving a pumpkin, right? So with that, we're going to go ahead and you can take a spoon. I've seen people do it with forks and knives. I have found using a spoon is best though. We're just going to scoop these out. Obviously, if you're using the pumpkin, there are different ways that you can separate your seeds out and roast them. There's a ton of recipes of those on the internet as well. But we're just, for the acorn squash at this point in time, that's really all we need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and set these aside. And then we're going to go ahead, we're going to take our spaghetti squash and do the same thing. So yet again, you're you're going to put this squash wherever it makes sense for you to work, in the space that you're working in. We're going to trim both ends, and then I'm going to sand it up straight just because we have our flat surface that's not going to move on us, and we're going to cut it right through the middle again. You can see all three of these are going to look very, very similar to the inside of a pumpkin. And I really treat my daughter really enjoys this when we do carving pumpkins because we're pretty quick and efficient at it by now. But same thing, we're just going to go ahead and scoop our seeds out. Spaghetti squash gets kind of its name because we're going to show you here in just a minute after we get done roasting it. We're going to literally shred it with a fork, so to speak, and it'll come out looking like spaghetti. And this is more of I like it because it's pretty versatile with cooking, like how we're going to prepare it today as a side dish, or there's tons of things that you can top this with and proteins that you can use with it to turn it into a main dish as well. Okay. The third squash that we're going to use is this butternut squash. And again, we're going to trim both ends. Stand it upright, and we're going to cut it in half. I can show you guys here too. These don't have quite as many seeds as the first two did, but we're going to go ahead and take these out. One more step, and this is kind of up to your discretion. Here at the restaurant, what we do is we like to peel the outside of the butternut squash, just so that we can use the entire squash when I'll show you guys how to slice this and roast it. We just use your standard potato peeler. The only thing that we really like to do is I can kind of show you here, if I just peel the outside layer, you still have in some squashes it's more prevalent than others, but you can see little green lines that run through here, and it's not like a deep orange color, and you really want to peel all that off until you get down to that nice orange, and it's kind of a consistent color around the entire squash. What happens is after we slice and roast these, it tends to get kind of stringy and chewy if you don't. So that's you can kind of see the difference between the tops and the bottoms here. And you can totally do this before you cut it in half. I find it a little easier to handle, as I throw it across the cutting board here. I find it a little easier to handle after you cut it in half, so you're not holding a big, round, slippery object. But we get it all peeled off down here. This should be kind of what your final product should look like here. So from here, we'll just do it with the half here. You can turn it sideways again, and then we just like to cut it into slices. The more consistent and same size your slices are, it will roast and cook more evenly. And sometimes when you get to the end here, it will tend to break in half on you a little bit. But by the time we're all done and finished here, we should just have nice even slices of butternut squash. And we will get those ready to roast in the oven with the other three here. So all three of these you can do, no problem. I wouldn't do them all together, but separately you can. It's pretty much the same way that we're going to prepare everything. We're going to just lightly coat these with a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper. The only thing that we're going to do differently is with the acorn squash is we're going to put a little filling, so to speak, on the insides of those. So what we've got going on here is I'm going to just kind of arrange our butternut squash on one side. We'll put our acorn squash up here, and then our spaghetti squash down here. Okay, so we have all of our different squashes on one pan here. They will really all take the same preparation before we stick them in the oven. So we've got just this is some extra virgin olive oil. You feel free to use any oil that you have in your house or that you're comfortable with using. The olive oil will add a little bit of flavor, but if you just had vegetable oil or a peanut oil, that would be just fine. But we're just going to really liberally coat these, and then we're going to season it with salt and pepper. Now the only difference here is with the acorn squash, we're gonna treat it just a little differently. We're gonna start with a couple of pats of butter, some brown sugar, and then after you've made pancakes for the day, the rest of your maple syrup that you had hanging around, we're going to drizzle that right over the top. Now for the spaghetti squash, we're going to go ahead after we've put some olive oil and salt and pepper on it. We're going to flip it over. It's going to take about a half an hour to 40 minutes to cook in a 350-degree oven. So this is going to just protect the color for the next preparation that we're going to do with it. Okay. And after this, we're going to go ahead and slide this in the oven. Okay, so guys, we've got everything going on as far as we've put the olive oil and the salt and pepper, and we've kind of got our squashes ready to go, and they are doing their thing in the oven right now. While that's going on, I had mentioned earlier that I like to take the things that take the longest and start those first. So we have that going on. While those are cooking, we're going to go ahead and prepare the rest of our ingredients for our dishes, okay? So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to peel and julienne our red onion. Again, this is to your comfort level. You can dice these whatever shape you'd like these to go into. For me in particular, we're going to go ahead and julienne it today. Here in a little bit, in just a second, I'll show you guys. We're gonna cut cherry tomatoes in half, and then I have a fancy word today. We're going to chiffonade our basil, which pretty much just means to cut into ribbons. That's going to be what we're going to finish our spaghetti squash with. So I'd like to just cut them in half. And these are all just real quick, easy preparations that this one in particular for our spaghetti squash, it could be just even for regular dinner on a Tuesday night kind of thing. It doesn't take a lot of time. With our cherry tomatoes, we're just cutting them in half. What I like to do with these is kind of line 2 or 3 up in a row. Because here at the restaurant, when we have cherry tomatoes, we do a couple of hundred of them at a time. So, just let these cut in half. We can push these to the side just a little bit. Right now we can, I like to take our basil, take the whole leaves and kind of collect them into my hand. So we get an even cut all the way through, and it just makes it a little quicker. So to do this, all we're going to do is we're just going to kind of roll them up a little bit, all in the, not a ball, but almost a cigar type shape, if you will. And same thing, we're just going to cut it literally into ribbons. The last thing that we're going to do is wipe our board off, and we're just going to really rough chop bacon. And this could be bacon you have prepared days in advance, or you cook that day, you have leftover from breakfast. But this is just really just getting it small enough so that it will fit in and kind of mix in with our spaghetti squash in a saute pan here. That's literally it. I think now what we'll do next is we're going to grab our spaghetti squash that has been finished in the oven, and I can show you guys how to take it out of the skin. Okay? All right, so we've prepared our other ingredients. We have one more step now. Now the spaghetti squash has come out of the oven, and this is kind of the fun part. It's really about getting the squash from outside of the skin, and this is yet another step of before we're actually going to finish this dish. But this generally goes pretty quick. Just your standard kitchen fork that you have in here. You can see too that since we pulled this out, there's a little bit of color on the outside of the squash, which is nice. But that's why we turned it upside down. So all of it doesn't give you that like really burnt flavor. This is going to mix all together and saute perfectly and give you a nice kind of caramelized onion sweetness, if you will. But we're just going to we're just going to dig into this squash and start pulling it apart. And you'll notice, and most squashes will cooperate with you and come out right away. But it should actually come out and look like, hence the name, like spaghetti noodles almost. So we're just kind of following the tips of our fork against the skin of these squashes is pretty thick. So chances are you're not really going to go through them. This one we're actually going to get a little lucky and it's going to come out all at once. Let's see if we can get the other side. Yeah, so you'll kind of start to see it break up into little strings that look like spaghetti noodles here. After we get it all out of the skin here, you can almost take another fork or a knife and cut it almost like you would be shredding pulled pork, if you will. So now we kind of have our final product out here. We take our fork, just kind of break our squash up. This is almost if you've ever cooked rice at your house as well, and you get done and you're kind of fluffing it. This kind of reminds me. This stuff reminds me of that. It's just really simple. We're going to get to my favorite part here in just a second, where we saute all this stuff together. Just breaking it apart. You don't really have to worry about getting it perfect, because after we put it in the saute pan, it'll get warm and kind of break apart on its own again. So we just kind of get it broken up into pieces just like this, and it'll sort of resemble spaghetti. And we are ready for the next step. Okay guys, so now that we have all of our ingredients prepared, now let's go ahead and saute everything together and finish this dish. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and I'll show you. We're going to preheat a pan, probably medium, high heat, and we'll start sauteing all our ingredients here. So yet again, like I said, medium to medium high heat. We're going to go a little splash of olive oil, or your vegetable cooking oil, whatever you happen to have. I like to start out with a little bit of the red onion that we julienne. That's gonna take longer to cook than most of our other ingredients, and we already have the squash that's cooked already. So we just give it a couple of quick tosses like this. Let it sit in the pan for just a second here. And yet again, we're not trying to caramelize or burn any of these onions, so as we add ingredients, the onions will still continue to cook. So we're really just looking for it to start getting soft and a little bit transparent, and then we're going to go in with the rest of our ingredients here. So yeah, this is kind of a good part. I'm starting to see some of the slices of onions break up a little bit. We're getting a little bit of translucency in here, so we're going to add some of our cherry tomatoes. We'll give that just a quick toss. Yet again, we're really not looking for any color. We're just looking to kind of slowly cook all these ingredients down together. And that's what's going to make all the flavors kind of come together in the pan, and then as we put it on the plate. At this point in time is when I like to add a little bit of garlic, so we don't burn that. That's why we don't put it in first. Well, after you add your garlic, you're probably going to need like a minute to a minute and a half. Constantly stirring. I'm moving things in a pan this way. We can also use the tongs that we're using, or if you just have one of your regular kitchen spoon or a spatula that's your favorite, work just as well. And so now we'll go ahead and put our squash in. And this is just going to be, kind of depending on the size of your pan and what you're comfortable with. For us today, we're just going to add probably half of that squash. Since we have already cooked our bacon, this is kind of when I like to add it again. Yet again, I don't add it in the beginning because it's already been cooked, and I don't want to burn it. It'll give your whole dish a real bitter taste. So we're going to add our bacon, and then this is depending on your situation. This is totally an optional step. I just find that it adds a little bit of acidity and some depth to the dish is what I like to do. Is add just about a half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of white wine. And then pretty much it's kind of a waiting game for the next couple of minutes here. We're just going to let all the liquid cook off from the wine. The alcohol will cook off, but all the flavor that's in the wine will stay. All right, so now we can see most of our liquid is cooked out of this. It's really time just to finish this dish. So we're going to add just some salt and pepper, 1 pat of butter, and some of this fresh shipping out of basil that we had made. It's really important to put your basil in, or if you're using fresh herbs in your dishes, to add them last. Had we added the basil to this first, it would really turn black and the whole dish would cook. This will still keep your vibrant colors and really give you that the fragrance and the flavor that you're looking for out of your basil. And then pretty much whenever we see that the butter is melted, we're going to go ahead and turn our heat off. And then like especially here, or whenever you're at your house, we're going to go ahead and just go right onto our plate. Whatever serving dish you're using, or if you're serving this as dinner for different people, you can go ahead and put it on your different plates or whatever you like to do. But I like to get it onto the plate. And then we're going to top it with a little more of our fresh basil. and some of this shaved Parmesan cheese. And that is the spaghetti squash. Okay, so we finished our spaghetti squash. Now we're just going to finish up the butternut squash that we had put in. We had peeled and sliced a little bit earlier. So this is really easy too, and depending on your comfort level or what you like to eat, this is just how we played it here at the restaurant. So we have our roasted butternut squash that we're just going to place on a whatever plate of your choosing. This is just what we use here. Get a pretty good amount down here. And then really it's just topping it here. So we're gonna use some of the shaved Parmesan like we used for the spaghetti squash. Here at the restaurant we like to use candied pecans. Yet again, if there's nut allergies or stuff, you can omit this. This just adds kind of a nice crunch and sweetness to it. And then we just finished with a balsamic syrup. So this kind of gives you some saltiness from the cheese, a little bit of sweet and crunch from the nut, and then just a little bit of tart to kind of balance out all this, all the sugar and the sweetness to it. And that's it. Okay, folks. So I just wanted to say too one more quick little thing here. We didn't really talk about that acorn squash that I put the butter and the brown sugar in when we roasted all of our squash. Really, all I do is when that's ready and comes out, we just kind of slice it, put it on whatever serving dish that you would like to serve it on. I like to take usually from the pan. There's a little bit, after the butter and the brown sugar all melt together, there's a little bit of goodness on the bottom of the pan, and we just drizzle it really lightly over the top. We season it again with a little bit of salt and pepper, and that's really all it needs. This ingredient is perfect for, like I said, applications like this, or like I like to make soups with it as well, but it's really an ingredient that just shines on its own. Okay, so now that we've made these like kind of three beautiful dishes, we're kind of ready to transition over. Kim's going to show you guys how to make a cocktail that'll go down to wash all of this wonderful food down.
Hi there, I'm Kim Heidemann from Union and American Bistro, and we are going to be demoing a pumpkin martini for those of you who like to drink their dessert. So we're going to start out with plenty of ice in our shaker. We're going to do about 2 ounces of vodka, any kind of pumpkin liqueur that you can find of your choice you can use. About 1 ounce of that. I'm gonna do about 1.5 ounces of a spiced rum. And a little bit of half and half to make it nice and creamy, like a pumpkin pie. Apple cider to add a little sweetener. As well as just a touch of maple syrup. Then the star of the show, with no labor involved, is pumpkin puree, already made for you. And we were going back and forth about the amount. If you like a lot of pumpkin, add more. If you don't, add a little bit less. And then pumpkin pie spice. Only a little bit so it doesn't overpower the entire drink. We're going to shake it up. You can serve it over ice or not. I think a little ice would be nice in this. A little bit extra. Some whipped cream. You can whip it yourself or you can buy it already pre-made. And you can always make it super fancy with a little cinnamon stick. Cheers. And for those of you who have children around during the holidays, I'm going to show you how to make a pumpkin martini mocktail. No alcohol for the little kiddos in your life. So we're going to start with some apple cider and plenty of ice once again, and they'll feel very grown up, some half and half. You can sub out milk if you'd like. A little bit of maple syrup. Then pumpkin puree. And you can get them involved as well. They love to measure out or not measure out ingredients. And add for you a little bit of the pumpkin pie spice. It's almost like a pumpkin milkshake. Shake it up. And I like to use the small glasses for kiddos so that they can't knock them over as readily. And if you want to get whipped cream in the bottles that squeeze out, kids absolutely love that. Once again, top it with a little bit of whipped cream. A little bit more spice just for garnish. And a cinnamon stick. Enjoy, kiddos.
We hope you enjoyed our virtual excursion with the amazing staff at Union and American Bistro. This time, of course, we covered squash, but next time it'll be another seasonal favorite. So stay tuned, and we hope you join us for our next virtual excursion. Thanks all.